back, folks. Bear Clan's Hiking Sedona podcast, episode 13. We're going into trail talk. Today's trails are going to be Airport Loop and the AZ Cypress. Just as an introduction, as I discuss the trails of Sedona, I want you to know that depending on the time of year, the weather, or your skill set, it's all going to determine whether or not you're going to take these hikes that I'm talking about. So pay close attention to what I'm saying and ultimately prepare for the weather. And also, guys, the distance or the mileage that I'm actually going to be referring to is just an estimate. Every cell phone, every app and map has a different calculation for mileage, and so everything's just going to be roughly. And they're all based on one way. Now understand, if I do give you a round trip or a loop, then that's not one way, but it technically is one way because you're going around a loop. So we'll keep that in mind. And also, at any point in time, you do not have to go to the end of any hiking trail. You go as far as you want to go, turn around and come back, and at no point will you be ever disappointed in the views that Sedona has to offer. Now the first one, folks, Airport Loop. A lot of people call it Airport Mesa. A lot of people call it the Airport Trail. Airport Loop is what it's called. It's just a big loop that goes around the base or the area surrounding our airport. Airport Loop Trail is roughly about 3.5 miles, somewhere around there. The terrain is generally narrow. It's kind of flattish. It does have some rockiness to it, and there are some ups and downs, but nothing's really serious. You'll be out in the wide open, so prepare for that, especially if you're thinking that's a summer hike for you. Don't forget, our sun's a little bit closer to us than normal places in the United States, so if you're coming from somewhere north and you're used to being in the cold, or from another country that isn't quite the same sun effect, be fully prepared for being out in the sun for the entire hike. Now, the trail itself kind of circles around our local airport, and our airport is only about 1 mile in length, the airstrip itself. And the elevation for this trail is roughly around 4,600 feet. It doesn't go up and down much, so you're basically going to be staying at around 4,600 feet of elevation. And it's essentially about halfway up the mesa, from the low point of the mesa around 4,000 to the high point around 4,850. Now, the access to the Airport Loop Trail is two places. Truthfully, there's only two places you can drive to, but there's 3 access points. So the first point is real simple. It's from Airport Road, which is located on 89A, and it's at the top of what we call Cook's Hill. It's just a very long hill in Sedona that separates the north end to the west end. At the top of that hill, you're going to see the intersection for Airport Road. You're going to travel roughly about a mile to get to the first location for the trailhead. The first location is going to be on your left, and it's going to be a tiny little parking area. And folks, depending on the time of year, you may never see an open parking spot there. Or you might get lucky and hit just the right time when somebody's leaving. There's about maybe a dozen parking spots, and that's about it. This trailhead area that I'm talking about is part of a saddle with 2 rock formations in it, and one of them is known as one of our vortex locations. So you can understand that it might be a little more heavily trafficked. So access to the airport loop is right at this parking lot. If you get out of your car and you look forward towards the neat little saddle with the rock formations, you go up to the saddle, stay to the right, follow the trailhead markings, and it'll bring you right to the airport loop. The next access point is actually across the road from where you park, and maybe about 100 feet or so up on the right, and it's kind of sneaky into the bushes. It's not ideal because traffic comes up and down that hill pretty quickly, and unless it's a decent day, you might have to stand and wait to cross the road. But either way, you can grab a hold of the trail right there because that is the beginning and the end of the Airport Loop Trail. However, there is another entrance point. It's not exactly an easy place to drive to, but there's a location at the end of Sunset Drive in the west end of Sedona. Sunset Drive is across from Coffee Pot Drive. If you find Coffee Pot, just look to the opposite side of the road and you'll be able to see Sunset Drive. You're going to ride all the way down straight to the end of Sunset Drive. You're going to come to where the road stops, literally stops, and there might be some really big trenches that you will not drive your car through. Go ahead and park your vehicle there and you're going to head up the hill, and the trailhead's going to be kind of sneaky-ish inside that. And maybe about 50 feet or so, you're going to actually stumble across the trail connector. At that point, you can either go left or right. It won't matter, depending on where you want to stop your hike. If you want to do the loop around from there, then it's still the 3.3 miles, but you'll either take a right or take a left and get to the point. And like I said before, folks, at any point in time, you do not have to go all the way to the end of any trail. If you feel like going to the south end or the west end of the airport loop, you will end up having some gorgeous views to look at, and maybe you'll just want to turn around and head back from there. And halfway through, if you're starting from the airport vortex area, parking lot, and you're taking either left or right, about halfway through on the southwest end of the airport, there's kind of a short little connector called Tabletop, and that's got some really decent views if you follow it down. It's roughly about a half mile, so add another mile to your total hike. Next hike I'm going to talk about is something called AZ Cypress, also known as Arizona Cypress. AZ Cypress is kind of a connector trail. It's just around 2 miles, maybe a little less than 2 miles if you just hike AZ Cypress, turn around and come back. However, because it's a connector trail, it actually has a lot of connecting points along the trail. I'm going to go through it real quick for you. The terrain is relatively flat. There's some points where you're going to be getting into a little bit of sandy moments. You're going to be near a creek, and the creek bed will be on your right. It's gorgeous views, and you get to see some of the fantastic sycamores and cottonwoods that we have growing out there near the Dry Creek area. It's also going to be pretty rocky at times too, and there's some gradual ups and downs, very similar to the airport trail, but it's nothing major. It also will be mostly out in the open, depending on the connectors that you choose after that. So the trailhead for AZ Cypress, if you're going to the main trailhead for it, it's going to be off of the Dry Creek Road, and it's just about 100 feet prior to getting into the Boynton Pass Road connection or intersection with Dry Creek Road. It's going to be on your left, and it's going to look like it isn't even a road for any trails. You're going to start driving out, and it looks like a wide open dirt area. Now when you go and park, you're going to park all the way down to the end of that dirt area. Looking at it coming from the entrance, it's going to be on the back right side. You're going to see a trail connector. Now that first connector is technically part of the Canyon O' Fools Trail, but it's not really because that trail is actually on the other side of the Dry Creek Road as you enter in. So don't really consider this dirt area part of any trail. When you get to your hiking on AZ Cypress, within about 100 yards or so, you're going to see a trail called Snake Trail, and it's going to head to the left. That's like east-southeast. Stay on AZ Cypress, which we're trying to keep here. About maybe 6/10 of a mile or so, you're going to connect with a trail called OK Trail, like everything's okay, and that's going to be heading almost northward. That trail itself, OK Trail, will ultimately connect to the Dawa Trail, D-A-W-A Trail, which will then connect you to the Boynton Pass Road, which I had mentioned before. So staying on AZ Cypress, maybe about another mile or so in, you're going to see that there's a connection to the left to Anaconda Trail, and that's Anaconda's south end. I actually prefer heading up Anaconda for the impressive views that are up there, because Anaconda is a small mesa that is about 1.7 miles worth of hiking to get to the other end, and along the way the expansive vistas just open up tremendously. Now staying on AZ Cypress as we pass by Anaconda, you're getting about maybe another 1/10 of a mile, and you're going to run across the south end connection to the Dawa Trail, D-A-W-A. So Dawa Trail is going to actually start there, or it starts over on Boynton Pass Road, and it just basically connects there. Now you could essentially take a right onto Dawa Trail and then connect back to the OK Trail, which I mentioned before, and then connect back with AZ Cypress closer to the trailhead. But we're sticking on AZ Cypress again. Maybe about 2 more tenths of a mile, you're going to be getting an intersection connecting AZ Cypress with Gardner and Rupp Trails. Rupp, R-U-P-P, and Gardner Trails. Those are basically 2 offshoots that'll take you in totally different directions. They're both gorgeous, but Gardner can be a little bit long depending on where you're headed. As we continue down AZ Cypress, we're actually going to be getting to the end of AZ Cypress when it connects to the Gardner Trail. Once it connects to Gardner Trail, of course, guys, you could have stopped at any time and turned around and gone back. No matter which decision you make, just make the safe one. Now, as we connect to the Gardner Trail, Gardner is another connecting trail that connects to a bunch of others, but we're focusing on this nice little AZ Cypress connection. At this point, you're going to be looking on Gardner Trail for about 2/10 of a mile, and it's going to bring you to an intersection of the Gardner Trail and a trail called Two Fences. That trail heads to your right. Keep going straight, because what you're coming up to next is about just under a mile, somewhere around maybe 6 or 7/10 of a mile. You're going to be connecting to Snake Trail, which I talked to you at the very beginning was the first connector that we saw on AZ Cypress. So essentially you're going to be doing a big loop, and it's going to be almost 3 miles in total length from start to finish. If you add on a lot of those moments where you want to go into the creek bed or up on Anaconda, then you might end up adding some more mileage to it, or cutting some off if you take some turnarounds and go back. So folks, thank you very much. That's a couple of trails that I wanted to make sure you got a hold of. Beautiful for anybody, every age just about, and every skill set, because nothing really is too up or down. Nothing's too dangerous, but it's all about the rocks and, of course, the hot sun. So thank you very much for listening in, folks. I'm going to continue doing these trail podcasts in between all the interview podcasts that I'm doing and more trail information as well. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy Sedona, and God bless you all.